Hi, everybody. Welcome to ASIS TV, previewing Black Hat 2018 Las Vegas. Chuck Harrell from SecurityGuideTV.com, talking to Levi Gundert with the company RecordedFuture.com. Welcome to the show, Levi.
Thanks, Chuck. Great to be here.
Now, I got to say, that's a great name. It conjures up all kinds of images in my head about solving problems and preventing threats. Tell us what you guys do.
Yeah, so Recorded Future is the threat intelligence company. And I think that it's a pretty remarkable product that we've developed over the last couple of years here. And really what it is we take a lot of information from open, closed, and technical sources, and we do a base level of analysis on it using machine learning and natural language processing to surface the right information for our customers quickly. And so we have a lot of different use cases across teams like vulnerability management and security operations center, incident response teams, and of course, threat intelligence teams use us. And that's both to raise awareness across the organization, but also to increase the efficacy of security controls, ultimately reducing risk for the organization. So I think we're very unique in that we have built a lot of technology around a product. So we're not as much a service company, though we do also offer services in the form of analysts on demand, but we're primarily a product company, and I think that's what makes us special in the threat intelligence market.
Now, you distinguish those two things. I would have thought of you as kind of an outsourced threat analyst that has all their libraries and all their data and stuff like that. But what you're saying is, I as a consumer, if I have the will, I can get in there, use this product, and find the data that I'm looking for.
Absolutely, and I think there's different use cases. And sometimes teams are under-resourced and they need additional help from analysts, and we provide that assistance through our analysts on demand services. But there's also a lot of teams out there that are building these capabilities in-house, and we have customers across pretty much every industry vertical, and they're really the producers of intelligence. So they have internal consumers, and our product is helping them produce at a much faster pace.
Now, who could use this? We know that Cisco can use it, and Facebook could use it. Big players. Can a medium-sized to small business use it? Because to me, that's where the vulnerabilities are, right? The plumber down the street, a couple hundred employees, he doesn't pay attention to any of this security stuff, but I think he should.
Certainly, and that's really been our focus, because we know that everyone has risk in this space, and not every threat is a risk. And obviously the small businesses don't have the same attack surface, but oftentimes they are the targets of opportunity, to your point, because they don't have the resources to invest. And so we think that threat-led security programs are inherently better because they're looking at risk. They're looking at not just what's happening internal to the network and the organization, but also what's happening external to the organization. And as we see the border sort of disappear in terms of that edge that we talk about, and for the last 20 years, there's very much been an inside out. But as there's more adoption of cloud and other types of technologies that sort of erase that border, threat intelligence becomes even more important. And we think, again, not every threat is a risk to the business, but having a security practice that is really defined and led by threat intelligence means that you can do a better job of estimating risk and really communicating that to senior stakeholders within the business.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody separate the word risk and threat, but they really are two distinct things, and it makes a lot of sense. If you respond to them the same way, you could be putting yourself at a bigger risk, really. Good way to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you hear a lot in the industry about actionable intelligence, and really what that comes down to is let's identify information that we think actually presents a risk to the business and take an action on it so we can improve a security control. And that could be, adding a rule to an appliance. It could be re-architecting how we do something like two-factor authentication, and then really talking about the value of the action that we took and quantifying how risk is decreased for the business there. And I think, as an industry, we still have a long way to go there, but that is fundamentally how threat intelligence provides value to the business, is being able to communicate the actions that are being taken, based on those threats that are applicable, and really what that means. Because at the end of the day, the business only cares about two things. Number one, are we going to lose money? And number two, if we're going to lose money, how much money are we going to lose? And that's really the job of a threat intelligence team, is to better answer those questions. A lot of people at the senior level, they may not understand technology, they may not understand security, but they understand the language of risk, and being able to better quantify uh, what the outputs are of a good risk model means that you can have a more substantive conversation at the senior stakeholder level and at the board level. And that's really the value that a threat intelligence team should be bringing, regardless of the size of the team or the organization. And our mission is really to enable those teams across the cybersecurity space, not just in threat intelligence, as I said again, to better inform the risk model, but also to really improve security controls. And we believe that threat intelligence is in and of itself a security control. And when we think about security controls, we tend to think about things like firewalls and IDS and IPS and web proxies and these technologies that we can buy. But we think that threat intelligence itself is its own security control. So, for example, if you think about just very basic use cases, for example, identifying leaked credentials from an organization externally that have been compromised, you can imagine that you could set up a workflow to automate the identification of those and record future, and then set up a process internally where you're actually resetting credentials through an LDAP or Active Directory server for those affected employees internally. That can be something that you can programatize, and that's something where threat intelligence programmatically becomes an actual security control for the organization. So it's really multiple pieces. It's improving the efficacy of existing security controls, with high fidelity intel, but it's also creating new security controls directly from threat intelligence itself.
Very well put. I haven't heard it put quite so succinctly. Makes a lot of sense. Now, you're a former Secret Service agent, which gives you a lot of street cred in my world, because really, the basis of that, you guys do everything the FBI does, but the protecting the president part is a lot about intelligence, more so about intelligence maybe than physical. And you wrote a paper, and you've been looking into Iran's hacker hierarchy. I think that's kind of interesting. And just today in the news, Iran said they're suing us, the United States and World Court, because our sanctions are too hard, when these guys are one of the worst players in the market. Tell us what's going on with their hacking and stuff.
Yeah, so Iran is a very interesting country to follow. And the reason for that is that their offensive capabilities really didn't develop and emerge until about a decade ago. And that was, right around the time of Stuxnet being made public, right around 2008, and the whole Green Party movement was happening. And right around that time, after that, there was a fair amount of buildup in terms of capabilities, and they have a different structure in terms of the way that they outsource some of that offensive work to a network of contractors within Iran, and that's something that we discuss in the paper. But I think one of the most interesting things is that they seem to be in a holding pattern right now, and it's interesting to sort of watch and wait to see if Iran will respond to American sanctions through the cyber nexus here, through the cyber channel. And so far, there seems to be a potential buildup of infrastructure and capabilities, but nothing has really taken form in terms of attacks. And part of that may be that Europe has said that they are committed to trying to blunt some of the impact of American sanctions here. But in reality, it's hard to see how Europe is really going to do that in any sort of serious way. And so, now, as I think America has set the deadline in November for companies to cut off doing business with Iran in certain industries, especially, we can already see some of the economic effects happening in Iran. So it'll be interesting to see, whether they do respond to this. And that's something we talk about in the paper, is that based on historical precedents in similar situations in the past, we believe that this is something that organizations should expect, and specific industries, especially like financial services that have been targeted in the past, may find themselves in the crosshairs once again as the economic pain dial gets ratcheted up here.
Levi Gundert, recordedfuture.com, fantastic name. Check him out at Black Hat. And Levi, thanks for coming on ASIS TV and securityguardradio.com, and stop by the press room at Black Hat and say hi.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Chuck. Appreciate it.